Hello YouTube, this is the Java Programmer. It's been a while since I've made a video, so I figured it's about time. I need to make something else. So I've kind of hit a mental block trying to figure out where to take this program from here. I know the things that I would like to do with it. We're trying to get to a signal manager, but I kind of got bogged down in some of the details, but to step aside, I know that we're going to need to be able to get history, to get data for a particular instrument. We need to get history data for an instrument, and so I thought that maybe in this episode we could write the get history method inside of our brokerage client. And we need to write some generic things so that we're not tied to oanda throughout our program. So let's look at that. If we look at our brokerage client interface, we see we don't really have anything here. If we look at our oanda, we see that we only have this one event handler, which is basically a specific to oanda. So let's write a method called get history. So I'm going to use some classes that don't exist, but just bear with me. We'll get there. So we want a linked list of a data bar. You might be wondering, what is a data bar? That's going to be what represents our data. So if you think of what a bar looks like on a chart, we've got the low, the high, the open, and the close. And the thing is that you have that for the bid price, and you also have that for the ask price. So there's going to be 8 different variables in there. There's also going to be a timestamp, and there's going to be typically a volume. So that's what's going to go in our data bar. Now a tick is a little different, because a tick is just the current bid and ask and nothing else, maybe volume. But a data bar is a collapse of a bunch of ticks, or basically a time frame, into a time interval. You know, it could be an hour interval, could be a minute interval, but we need to represent that as a data bar. So we'll create that class here in a minute. So when we're getting history, we want to pass in an instrument. We want to pass in what I would call a chart type or a chart size. This is going to be, you know, whether we're looking at an hour, minute, second, and then the amount of those that we want. So like if we're looking at a minute intervals, we might want 60 minutes. So we would have 60-minute, 1-minute intervals. Whereas if we were looking at an hour intervals, maybe we would want 120, which I think is 5 days. So if we said that we wanted the interval being an hour, and then we wanted 120 of those, we would be looking at 5 days worth of data on a particular instrument. So anyway, we have to get the actual instrument. Since we're in the oanda client, the brokerage client, we are pretty specific about how this works. So we want to look up, first off, we want to look up the instrument from the rate table. So this is pretty straightforward. Get the instrument. Oanda uses vectors for everything, but they're going to return a vector of history points, and they call it history. And you can see this is all going red. Let's see if we can help this out. Let's import vector. think we can import linked list. Data bar is going to be our class. Chart type is going to be our class. History point is an oanda class. So there we go. So if we catch oanda exception, they have their own set of exceptions. We'll just print the stack trace to see what's going on there. All right, so history is going to equal our rate table dot get history, and it takes several arguments. So the first argument that it takes is the instrument that we're looking for. The second argument is oanda specific chart type, and then an amount. So we're going to have to create a class that converts a generic chart type into an oanda specific chart type. So I'm going to call it oanda data type dot convert chart type to oanda type, and we're going to pass that in our chart type. Of course, this class does not exist either, but at least now we should have all the things that we need. Nope, I am wrong. So we got the history. We actually have to create a linked list and return that. So here's our linked list bars. It's going to equal a new linked list, passing in a data bar. And we're going to loop through oanda's history. So for a history point in history, what are we going to do? Basically, we want to create a new data bar out of that, not database, data bar. Bar is equal to new data bar. We'll pass in the point. So a data bar will know how to convert from a FX history point to itself. So we'll find that there'll be some code in a data bar that handles the different brokerages as well as all the different types. But it'll just make it easier in trying to pass the data around. So now we're going to take our bars, which is a linked list. We're going to add in this bar. And when we're done, we're going to return bars. However, it's going to throw an error because bars was not created. It was only created inside the linked list. I mean, inside the try catch. So bars equals null. And here we're going to say, actually, we could probably just do this whole thing right outside. This is probably fine. So it'd be fine if we created a linked list that's empty and returned it if for some reason. All right, so we need some classes. Now, I realized that this data bar, I have created if we look into the models, I have this tick class. But I realized that this really should be refactored and called data tick, not just tick. So I right-clicked on it, chose refactor, rename. It should go through the code and rename that tick everywhere. There we go. Now we'll go ahead and close that, and we'll go back to here. And what we're going to do is we're going to create data bar does not exist, so we're going to create that class. Create, where'd it go? Create class data bar. And this is going to go in our models. So now we have a data bar. Save. A lot more of our red goes away. Now we need to create a constructor that takes a data point We'll come back to this in a minute. We need to create this. This is going to be an enum oanda data type package for those. Yeah, so enums. We actually need to create that, change that from a class to an enum. Import it. Should be giving me an error because, well, let's just create chart type. We'll see what happens. Chart type's also going to go in our, that's going to be an enum also. All right, so does our red go away? All right, so we need to create this method in the oanda data type. Create method. I don't want this to be, well, for now that's fine. We'll come back to this. All right, so there's our method. Get the instrument, create a history variable, create a bars return, which is what we're going to return. We ask the rate table for the history based on this particular type and an amount. We get the history, loop through the history, convert each one of these points into bars, and then we return those when we're done. So for now, we've got some classes that we need to fix. So stay tuned for the next one, and we will create these classes that are missing. We'll create the class data bar, we'll work on this data type, and we'll work on this chart type. Anyway, thanks for watching. This is the Java Programmer.